Hi, Falcons. Welcome back to second semester. We're going to start back with our ACT math videos. We're responsible for the month of January, so I'm going to do today, and then I've got a couple of other math teachers that are going to that have already volunteered to do the next two videos. So I picked some trig problems for this week. Now I know some of y'all haven't been taught trig yet, so just bear with me when you finally learn trig. This stuff will make more sense. But for anybody that's sophomore and above, you've probably seen at least a little bit of trig along the way. So the big thing about trig, of course, is first thing is knowing your formulas. So we have this phrase we call SOHCAHTOA, and I capitalized the S, the C, and the T on purpose because that stands for the sine. We usually abbreviate sine, S-I-N, of an angle. C stands for cosine. We abbreviate it COS of an angle, and T stands for tangent. We abbreviate it TAN. And then the other parts of this formula are going to come from the parts of the right triangle. So trig is used on a right triangle, and those words O, A, and H stand for opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. So of course the sign is O over H. You're making fractions. So opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is A over H, so that's the adjacent side of the triangle over the hypotenuse. And then if you notice, tangent doesn't have an H, so it's the opposite side over the adjacent. So even though these formulas look a little bit alike, none of them are repetitive. They're all individual different formulas: sine, cosine, and tangent. Getting the formulas down is one thing. And then the second important thing about trig is that you know how to label this triangle according to these words: hypotenuse, adjacent, opposite. Well, to get the hypotenuse, that's easy. We learned that when we did a little bit of Pythagorean theorem this year. So that's across from the right angle. Remember, it never touches the right angle. So that side right there would never touch that right angle. So this is the hypotenuse. And it's usually a good idea to label that first. Now, when we're talking about the legs of the triangle, one leg is going to be the adjacent side and one leg is going to be the opposite side. And it's in reference to this angle that we're given, this acute angle inside of the triangle. Well, it's kind of like when we did opposite of the right angle is across from, opposite of 72 is the side that would never touch that 72. So if I put my pen down, this side over here never touches 72, whereas this little small bottom piece will run right into it. So this would be the opposite side, and this will be the adjacent. Okay, now we do need to go look at the word problem for a second to figure out what they're wanting to know. So if you look at the bottom, it says, which of the following expressions gives the distance in feet from the center of the balloon, right there, to the ground? So this is the part that they want to know. We're going to call that X. Now, the good news about trig is you're not going to have to do a lot of math. There's not a lot of trig questions on the ACT, but they're usually pretty easy to answer because you don't really have to do any math, because the ACT, you don't have to have a calculator necessarily. And to get these values, somebody would have to either give you a calculator or give you a paper table of values. So we're going to just have to set up this problem. All right, now here we go. Move these formulas over just a minute. So we need the hypotenuse we have a number for, and the opposite we're looking for. So we're going to cross this off because we're not going to be using any formula that has the word adjacent in it. So that's going to eliminate tangent and cosine. So we're going to be using the sine formula. So the sine of an angle is O over H. Again, that comes from just memorizing the formulas. Okay, so let's put in the parts to the formula. Well, we're going to have an X for the opposite, of course. So sine of an angle, or the angle 72, you never use the right angle, you always use the acute angle. Sine of 72 is X over, we know the hypotenuse, a number there, so that's 144. And then, of course, what they want is they want you to solve this for X, and then that's going to be when we go look for the answer. So this is easy to solve. 144 is being divided. We want to do the opposite. So it'll cross out over here. And what we do on one side, we know we have to do on the other side. And that is our answer right there, 144 sine 72. So if we go over to the answers, there it is right there, answer E. 144 sine of 72. Again, they're not going to ask you to do the calculations unless they told you the value of sine of 72 in part of the problem or in a chart. Okay, let's move on down to this. These problems are all very similar, and I'm going to work the second one here and give you a chance to work the third one. Okay, so the next problem says, there is some tent shown below. The tent is 6 foot wide at its base. Which of the following expressions, again, you don't have to do the math, could be used to calculate the height of the tent? So this is the height, that thing that's dropped perpendicular. So this is a right angle. Now, here's where you have to be careful on this problem. We only use trig when we're dealing with a right triangle. Well, this triangle right here is not a right triangle. So we have to just concentrate on one of these triangles on the right or the left. I'm just going to concentrate on this triangle to the left. So we're only working with this smaller half of the triangle, which means we're going to have to adjust this bottom piece. So when you come down here with the height, that's going to cut this into 2 equal triangles. 6 divided by 2 would give us 3 for this bottom piece, if you will, of the triangle. Okay, now let's go ahead and do that labeling stuff. So the hypotenuse is right here. Our angle that we're concerned with is 40. So this bottom piece of 3 would never touch 40. So that's going to be the opposite. And that leaves this one to be the adjacent. Okay, now look what's different in this problem. We're given a number for the opposite. So we're definitely going to want to use a formula that has an O in it. And we're looking for the adjacent. So we're going to want to pick a number that has the adjacent in it and opposite. So we're not really going to use sine or cosine because we're not dealing with the hypotenuse in this problem at all. So we're going to come over here and find the one that we need, which is tangent. So let me scoot these formulas out of the way. So tangent is O over A. So tangent of the angle. So that angle's 40. Remember, you're not using the right angle. And the opposite is 3. And the adjacent is X. Now, this one is not going to work out just like the first one I did because the X is not on the top. So we have to go ahead and get rid of the X on this side because we don't need it in the denominator. So we're going to multiply both sides by X. And then, of course, we're still trying to isolate X. So we're going to divide now by tangent of 40, which is just some number. So we're allowed to divide by it. Tangent of 40. And this is the part that would be the answer. So you do have to be careful when you set up your problem. If the letters on the top, it's going to work out to be multiplication. But if the letters on the bottom, like this problem, it will end up being a division problem. So now we just have to go pick it out. 3 over tan 40. That would be H, 3 over tan 40. Okay, so let me go ahead and scoot this up. I'm going to leave the problem I have, see if I can leave the problem I just worked out and also make it to where you can see the bottom problem. So if you'll pause the video and try to see if you can work out the bottom problem. And if you can't see it really good, let me just redraw the triangle that's in the t-shirt. So it is 10. And there's your right angle, and this angle is 35. And they're asking you to find this part right here. Okay, so hopefully you had a chance to try to work this problem. So let me go ahead and just go through the same steps that we did for the first and second problem. So again, I got the fact that they wanted this from reading the word problem, but everything else is already given to you in the picture. So labeling, of course, is important. So there's the hypotenuse. This side right here comes in and touches the angle, and this one doesn't. So this will be the opposite. This will be the adjacent. We're not going to be using the adjacent. It's part of our problem. So just like the first problem I did, we need the trig function that has O over H. That is your sine function. So sine of 35 degrees equals O over H. I mean, O over H, sorry, so 10 over X. So this is going to solve out like the previous one I just did. To get it solved for X, we're going to have to first multiply by X, giving us this. And then, of course, to finish out, we're going to need to divide by sine of 35, but we're not going to have to do the math. We're just going to then go pick this part out. 10 over sine of 35. Choice D is the correct answer. Okay, so hopefully for you upperclassmen, that just reminded you of your right triangle trig that you learned in geometry and possibly some more in algebra 2. Again, for you guys that are underclassmen, you will see this when you take geometry and algebra 2. Okay, you'll have a great rest of your day.